Daehyun stood in the grand chamber of the Coalition Capital Station and tried to ignore the feeling crawling up his spine. Around him, representatives from 400 different alien worlds celebrated the greatest achievement in galactic history. The Quantum Gate network would connect every civilization instantly. No more long journeys between stars. No more waiting years for messages to reach distant colonies. Just step through a gate and arrive anywhere in the galaxy. But something felt wrong. He could not explain it. The data looked perfect. Every calculation checked out. The alien scientists had tested everything 1,000 times. They were brilliant beings who had mastered space travel when humans still lived in caves. They knew what they were doing. Still, Daehyun's hands felt cold. His stomach twisted. Every instinct screamed at him to run. High Counselor Vrathis approached him. The Keltheran leader looked like a walking crystal sculpture, catching light from every angle. Vrathis did not have a face that showed emotions, but Daehyun had learned to read the subtle color changes in their form. "Commander Daehyun," Vrathis said in perfect English, "you seem troubled. Is something wrong with the ceremony?" Daehyun hesitated. How could he explain this feeling? He had no evidence, no logical reason, just this deep sense that they were making a terrible mistake. "The quantum gates," he started carefully. "Has anyone checked for dimensional instability?" Vrathis shifted colors slightly, which Daehyun had learned meant confusion. "We have checked everything, Commander. The gates are completely safe. Our best scientists have confirmed this." "I know," Daehyun said, "but something feels off about this. I cannot explain it." "Ah." Vrathis turned a deeper shade of blue. "Your species still relies on emotional responses. We evolved past such primitive reactions millions of years ago. The data shows no danger. You must learn to trust logic over feeling, Commander." Before Daehyun could respond, someone touched his arm. Dr. Hana, Earth's top scientist in the Coalition, looked pale. She pulled him aside, away from the celebrating aliens. "You feel it too?" she whispered. Daehyun nodded, like something bad is about to happen. "It is not just us," Hana said. She pulled out her datapad and showed him a list of names. "I have been quietly asking around. Every human on this station feels the same way. Every single one. They all say something feels wrong about the quantum gates." Daehyun stared at the list. Over 200 human names. Scientists, engineers, diplomats, soldiers, all reporting the same inexplicable feeling of dread. "That cannot be coincidence," he said. "No," Hana agreed. "I think our instincts are picking up something the sensors cannot detect. But when I try to tell the alien scientists, they just say we are being emotional." Across the chamber, a young woman in a Coalition engineering uniform caught Daehyun's eye. Bora, the youngest member of Earth's delegation, was staring at the holographic display of the Quantum Gate network. Her hands trembled. Sweat beaded on her forehead, even though the room was cool. Daehyun and Hana walked over to her. "Bora," Hana asked gently, "are you okay?" The young engineer shook her head. "The math," she whispered. "I have been checking the calculations. Everything adds up perfectly. But there are these tiny irregularities in the quantum field equations, so small that they fall within acceptable error margins." "Then why do you look so scared?" Daehyun asked. "Because my gut tells me those errors matter," Bora said. "I cannot prove it. The alien scientists say I am worrying about nothing, but every time I look at those numbers I want to scream." Before they could discuss it further, the ceremony began. High Counselor Vrathis floated to the center of the chamber. Holographic displays showed quantum gates on hundreds of worlds, all ready to activate for the first time. "Today," Vrathis announced, "we unite our galaxy as never before. In 30 days we will activate the full network. Every world will be connected, every species will be neighbors. This is our greatest achievement." The alien representatives cheered. Music played. Lights danced across the chamber. It was a moment of perfect celebration. Daehyun watched the holographic gates pulse with energy, and his hands curled into fists. Every nerve in his body screamed danger. Around him, he could see other humans backing away from the displays, unconsciously putting distance between themselves and the images of the quantum gates. The aliens noticed nothing. They were too busy celebrating their triumph. That night, Dae-hyun tried to sleep but could not. He kept thinking about Vrethus's words. Primitive reactions. Maybe the counselor was right. Maybe humans were just too new to galactic civilization to understand how safe everything really was. But then he received an emergency message. Captain Jiwoo, commander of the human exploration ship Vigilance, was calling from deep space near one of the prototype quantum gates. Jiwoo's face appeared on his screen. She looked terrified. "Commander, we have a problem. My entire crew wants to leave this location immediately. We cannot explain why, but something about this gate feels wrong. Really wrong." "What do your sensors show?" Dae-hyun asked. "Everything normal," Jiwoo said. "But Commander, I have been in combat. I have faced pirates and hostile aliens. I know what danger feels like, and this." She paused. "This feels worse than anything I have ever experienced. My crew is begging me to leave." "Coalition Command ordered you to stay and observe, correct?" Dae-hyun said. Jiwoo nodded slowly. "Yes. They say I am being irrational." Dae-hyun made a decision. Regulations said he should order Jiwoo to follow Coalition Command, but his instincts, the same ones screaming at him all day, told him something else. "Captain," he said quietly, "trust your gut. Get your crew out of there." Relief flooded Jiwoo's face, but before she could respond, something appeared on the screen behind her. The quantum gate in the distance was beginning to shimmer in a way that made Dae-hyun's eyes hurt to look at. Then Jiwoo screamed and the transmission cut to static. The emergency meeting room in Earth's embassy was full of frightened humans. Dae-hyun stood at the front, watching faces he had known for years. Scientists, soldiers, diplomats, engineers. Every single person looked exhausted. None of them had slept properly in days. Dr. Hana stood and activated the large display screen. Charts and graphs appeared, showing data collected from every human in Coalition space. "The numbers are clear," she said. 98% of humans report feeling intense anxiety about the quantum gates. The feeling gets stronger as we get closer to activation day, and it is the same everywhere, from the core worlds to the outer colonies. An older scientist raised his hand. His name was Taemin, and he had spent 20 years studying alien technology. "But why?" he asked. "I have checked the quantum gate designs myself. They should be safe. The math is perfect. The math is perfect by Coalition standards." Bora spoke up from the back. The young engineer had dark circles under her eyes. "But I keep finding these tiny irregularities. They are so small that the alien scientists say they do not matter, but every time I see them my skin crawls." Dae-hyun thought about Jiwoo. The Vigilance had gone silent 3 days ago near that prototype gate. Coalition search teams found nothing. No wreckage, no distress beacons, no trace of the ship at all. It was as if the Vigilance had simply stopped existing. But High Counselor Vrethus said it was probably a navigation error. The ship would turn up. These things happen sometimes in deep space. Dae-hyun did not believe that for a second. "We need to talk about what this feeling actually is," Hana continued. She changed the display to show brain scans. "I have been studying human neurology for years. Our species evolved on Earth, which was full of dangerous predators. We developed an instinct for sensing threats even when we could not see them clearly. We learned to trust our gut feelings because they kept us alive. Other species lost that instinct," added Taemin. "They evolved past it. They rely completely on logic and sensors now." "Exactly," Hana said. "Most alien civilizations are millions of years older than us. They think our instincts are primitive. But what if our instincts are detecting something their sensors cannot?" The room fell silent. Everyone understood what Hana was suggesting. Their fear was not irrational. It was a warning. A young woman named Su-min stood up. She worked as a translator at the Coalition Council. "I tried to explain this to Ambassador Quell," she said. "Quell is Luminari, so she can sense emotions through telepathy. I thought maybe she could feel what we are feeling and help us explain it to the Council." "What did she say?" Dae-hyun asked. Su-min looked troubled. "She said she could feel our fear, but she did not understand why we were afraid. She kept saying the data shows everything is safe. She thinks we are experiencing some kind of collective anxiety disorder." Dae-hyun clenched his jaw. They were running out of time. The full network activation was in 27 days. He needed to make the Coalition Council listen. But how could he convince beings who thought emotions were primitive? A message alert beeped on his personal device. It was from Commander Thix, the Mordanian who led Coalition military forces. Thix was a warrior from a species that valued honor and strength above all else. He and Dae-hyun had worked together on several missions and developed mutual respect. The message was short. Meet me in private. Training Room 7. Come alone. An hour later, Dae-hyun found Thix in the empty training room. The massive alien stood nearly 8 feet tall with armored skin and 4 arms. His species had conquered half their home galaxy through sheer military might before joining the Coalition. Commander Dae-hyun, Thix rumbled. I need to speak with you about something I cannot say in official channels. Go ahead, Dae-hyun said. Thix was quiet for a moment. Then he said, My people were warriors for millions of years before we developed advanced technology. We had battle instincts that guided us in combat, but over time we learned to suppress those instincts. We trusted our tactical computers instead. And, Dae-hyun prompted, I still have those instincts, Thix admitted quietly, deep inside, and they are telling me something is wrong with the quantum gates. I cannot explain it. The data says everything is fine, but when I see images of the gates, I feel the same way I felt before major battles, like death is coming. Dae-hyun felt a surge of hope. If Thix felt it too, maybe they could convince others. Will you speak to the council with me? Dae-hyun asked. Thix shook his massive head. I cannot. If I admit to having emotional responses about military decisions, they will remove me from command. The council believes emotions compromise judgment, but you are willing to tell me, Dae-hyun said. Because you understand, Thix replied. Your species still trusts instinct. Mine does not. Not officially. But I wanted you to know that you are not crazy, and if things go wrong, I will stand with you. After Thix left, Dae-hyun returned to the embassy. Hana was waiting for him with more bad news. 3 more human ships have gone silent near quantum gate installations, she said. Coalition Command says it is just communication errors. But Dae-hyun, the crews reported feeling terrified before they lost contact. Just like Jiwoo, Dae-hyun stared at the star map on the wall. Hundreds of quantum gates all ready to activate simultaneously in less than a month, and every human instinct screaming that it would be a catastrophe. What if we are wrong? He asked quietly. What if this is just fear of new technology? Hana looked at him seriously. Do you believe that? He thought about the cold feeling in his gut. The way every human on the station looked exhausted from constant anxiety. The missing ships. The tiny errors in the equations that Bora could not stop worrying about. No, he said. I think something terrible is about to happen. And nobody will listen. That night, Bora sent an urgent message to all human personnel. She had been running unauthorized simulations with a small group of sympathetic alien scientists. The results made her blood run cold. The quantum gates were not just creating shortcuts through space. They were punching tiny holes in reality itself, holes so small that Coalition sensors could not detect them. But if all the gates activated at once, those holes would tear open into something much bigger. Bora tried to present her findings to the Coalition Council. They thanked her politely and dismissed her concerns. The margin of error was acceptable, they said. She was worrying about nothing, they said. Humans were still too new to galactic civilization to understand these complex systems, they said. 27 days until activation, and humanity's warnings continued to fall on deaf ears. The activation ceremony was magnificent. High Counselor Vrethis stood at the center of the Coalition Capital Station's main chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing quantum gates on hundreds of worlds. Representatives from every member civilization watched with excitement, except the humans. Dae-hyun stood at the back of the chamber with the rest of Earth's delegation. Every human present looked sick. Some were shaking, others had tears running down their faces. The feeling of wrongness had grown so intense that it felt like drowning. Bora gripped his arm so tightly her fingers left marks. Please, she whispered. Please stop this. Something terrible is about to happen. But it was too late. Vrethis had already begun the countdown. 10 seconds until full network activation, the counselor announced. Today we make history. The alien representatives cheered. Across the galaxy, billions of beings celebrated, and every human in Coalition space screamed, not with their voices, It was deeper than that. It was an evolutionary alarm system going off at maximum volume, millions of years of survival instinct crying out in terror. Dae-hyun fell to his knees. Around him, other humans collapsed. The fear was so overwhelming that some people passed out. Others vomited. Dr. Hana curled into a ball, hands over her ears, trying to block out something that was not even a sound. Then the gates activated. For one perfect moment, the network came online. Energy flowed between gates. The quantum connections formed. It worked exactly as designed. Then reality tore open. The first breach appeared near the Nexus Prime gate, the largest in the network. One moment there was normal space. The next there was a hole. Not a hole you could see properly. It hurt to look at. It existed in directions that should not exist. Something came through. The coalition sensors saw nothing. The tactical computers registered no threats. According to all the advanced technology, space was empty. But the coalition fleet stationed near Nexus Prime started dying. Ships exploded for no reason. Crews reported invisible forces tearing through their hulls. Weapons fired at targets that sensors said were not there. And nothing the coalition forces did made any difference because they were fighting enemies they could not perceive. In the command chamber, High Counselor Vrethis stared at the displays in confusion. "This is impossible," Vrethis said. "The sensors show nothing, but our ships are being destroyed." Dae-hyun forced himself to his feet. The terror still pounded through him, but he had been a soldier for 20 years. He knew how to function through fear. "Because your sensors cannot detect them," he said through gritted teeth. "But we can feel them. Humans can sense them." More breaches appeared across the galaxy. Wherever quantum gates had activated, holes tore open in reality. And through those holes came entities from somewhere else. Somewhere that existed before the current universe, Dr. Hana would later theorize. Beings that had been locked away in a dying dimension. The quantum gates had set them free. Reports flooded in from across coalition space. Entire fleets vanishing, colonies going silent, and everywhere the same pattern. Ships relying on sensors and computers were destroyed instantly. They never even saw what killed them. But something strange was happening with the human ships. They were surviving, not because human technology was better. It was not. Human ships were among the weakest in the coalition. But human crews were doing things that made no logical sense. They were dodging attacks they could not see, firing weapons at empty space and hitting something, running away from areas that looked perfectly safe but felt wrong. They were following their instincts. A transmission came through from deep space. It was Jiwoo. The vigilance had survived. Her face appeared on the screen, covered in blood and soot. "Commander Dae-hyun," she gasped. "We have been fighting these things for days. We barely made it out of that first breach. But we learned something. You cannot fight them with sensors. You have to feel where they are." "How?" Dae-hyun demanded. "The same way you knew something was wrong with the gates," Jiwoo said. "Trust your gut. When your skin crawls, there is something there. When you feel the urge to move, move. Do not think about it. Just react." Around the command chamber, the alien representatives finally understood what Dae-hyun had been trying to tell them. Their advanced sensors were useless. Their superior technology meant nothing. They had evolved past the primitive instincts that could have saved them. Humans had not. High Counselor Vrethis approached Dae-hyun. The Keltheran's crystalline form had turned a deep gray color that Dae-hyun recognized as shame. "You tried to warn us," Vrethis said quietly. "We should have listened." "We can talk about that later," Dae-hyun said. "Right now we need to fight back. And to do that, everyone needs to learn to trust instinct over logic. Can you teach us?" Vrethis asked. Dae-hyun looked at the display showing the carnage across the galaxy. Ships burning, stations falling, millions already dead because nobody would listen to humanity's warnings. "We can try," he said, "but it will not be easy. You spent millions of years evolving past these instincts, teaching you to feel them again in the middle of a war." He shook his head. "I do not know if it is even possible." Commander Thix entered the chamber, his armor scorched from battle. He looked at Dae-hyun and gave a small nod. "I told you I would stand with you if things went wrong," Thix said. "My fleet is ready." "What are your orders, Commander?" Dae-hyun took a deep breath. The galaxy had ignored humanity's warnings. Now humanity would have to save it. "We fight," he said, "and we teach them to trust what their sensors cannot see." The coalition capital station had become a fortress under siege. Dimensional breaches surrounded it like wounds in space. The entities that came through those wounds could not be seen on sensors, but everyone could feel them now, even the aliens. High Counselor Vrethus had given Daehyun full authority over the military response. It was unprecedented. Humans had only been in the coalition for 50 years. Now a human was commanding forces from civilizations millions of years old, but nobody argued. Traditional tactics were not working. Daehyun stood in the war room with Commander Thix and Ambassador Quell. The Luminari diplomat looked exhausted. Being telepathic meant she felt everyone's fear all the time. It was overwhelming her. How do we teach an entire galaxy to trust instinct in the middle of a war? Thix asked. My people have not listened to battle instincts for thousands of years. We start small, Daehyun said. Every coalition military unit gets human advisors. Humans who can sense where the entities are. The aliens learn to trust what the humans tell them, even when it contradicts their sensors. That will not be easy. Quell said softly. We have spent our entire civilizations believing that logic and data are superior to emotion. Then we will prove them wrong, Daehyun replied. One battle at a time. The first test came quickly. A coalition fleet needed to evacuate a colony world, but three-dimensional breaches blocked the route. According to sensors, the path looked clear, but the human advisor on the flagship, a young soldier named Kyung-soo, said it felt wrong. The alien commander wanted to ignore him. The sensors showed nothing. Time was running out. They needed to move, but Commander Thix had given orders. Trust the humans no matter what the data says. So the fleet took a longer route. It added 3 hours to the journey. The alien commander was angry about the delay. Then they received a transmission from another fleet that had taken the direct route. The fleet that ignored their human advisor's warnings. 20 ships had been torn apart by entities they never saw coming. Not a single survivor. After that, the alien commanders started listening. Dr. Hana worked day and night on a different solution. She was building something she called the Consciousness Network. It would link human minds across the galaxy, creating a shared awareness of threats. If one human senses danger, all connected humans will know, she explained to the council. It will be like having millions of sensors that can detect what technology cannot. Is it safe? Vrethus asked. Hana paused. I do not know. We have never tried to link human consciousness on this scale, but we are running out of options. Thousands of humans volunteered. They knew the risks. The network might damage their minds. It might kill them, but if it helped save the galaxy, they were willing to try. Bo-Ra was one of the volunteers. She worked with alien scientists to build the technology that would make the network possible. The same aliens who had dismissed her warnings about the quantum gates now listened to every word she said. Meanwhile, Captain Jiwoo and the Vigilance became legends. Her crew had survived more encounters with the entities than any other ship. She taught other captains her techniques. Trust your gut. When something feels wrong, react immediately. Do not wait for sensor confirmation. Some alien crews learned quickly, others struggled. It was hard to ignore millions of years of evolution, hard to trust feeling overthinking. But those who learned survived. Those who did not became casualties. Ambassador Quell discovered something important. As a telepath, she could sense the entities in a way other aliens could not. She could feel their intentions. And what she learned changed everything. She brought her discovery to Daehyun in private. They are not invaders, she said. They are refugees. What? Daehyun stared at her. I can feel their emotions through the breaches, Quell explained. They are terrified, desperate, their dimension is collapsing. They are not attacking us because they want to. They are fighting for survival. Daehyun sat down heavily. This complicated everything. The entities were killing millions of people, destroying worlds, but they were also victims trapped in a dying universe and desperately trying to escape. Can you communicate with them? He asked. Not yet, Quell said. The dimensional barriers make it difficult, but I am trying. The war continued. Humans and aliens fought side by side, learning to blend logic with instinct. Coalition forces started winning battles. Not all of them, but enough to give everyone hope. Commander Thix proved to be a fast learner. He rediscovered the warrior instincts his species had buried long ago. In one famous battle, he ordered his entire fleet to retreat from what sensors said was an empty region of space. His officers thought he was being irrational. 5 minutes later, The largest dimensional breach yet opened in that exact location. If the fleet had stayed, they would all be dead. How did you know? His second officer asked. Thix looked at his 4 hands, remembering when his ancestors used them in combat instead of relying on computers. I felt it, he said simply. Just like the humans taught me, Dr. Hana's consciousness network was almost ready. She had solved most of the technical problems. But there was one major risk. The network would expose every connected human to the full terror of sensing the entities constantly. It might break their minds. She asked for volunteers who understood the danger. Every single human in Coalition space volunteered. On the day of activation, Daehyun watched as millions of humans linked their consciousness together. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every human's eyes went wide. They could see the entities, not with their eyes, but with their shared instinct. Thousands of dimensional breaches became visible, millions of entities, all desperate and afraid, all trying to escape their dying dimension. And for the first time, the aliens could see it too. Through the network, through Ambassador Quell's telepathy, the alien leaders experienced reality the way humans perceived it. High Counselor Vrethis turned a color Daehyun had never seen before. Pure white, which he later learned meant shock and awe. This is what you sense all the time, Vrethis asked. This many threats? This much danger? Yes, Daehyun said quietly. How do you function with this constant awareness of danger? We learn to live with it, Daehyun replied. Millions of years of evolution taught us how. You gave up that ability for logic. We kept it for survival. The galaxy finally understood what humanity had been trying to tell them, and now together they could fight back. The consciousness network changed everything. Humans across the galaxy now shared awareness of every dimensional breach, every entity, every threat, and through Ambassador Quell's telepathy, the alien leadership could finally understand what humans had been sensing all along. But understanding the problem was not the same as solving it. Daehyun stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolute, watching coalition forces prepare for their first major counteroffensive. They were going to close dimensional breaches one at a time. It would be dangerous. It might be impossible, but they had to try. Bora had figured out how to seal the breaches. Each quantum gate could be reconfigured to reverse its function, pulling the dimensional tiers closed. But someone had to fly a ship directly into the breach to deploy the reconfiguration device. It was essentially a suicide mission. The entities guarded the breaches fiercely, and the space inside a breach did not follow normal physics. Ships could be torn apart. Crews could be lost in impossible geometries. Time itself became unstable. Captain Jiwoo volunteered to go first. Of course you did, Daehyun said when she told him. He wanted to order her to stay safe. But Jiwoo was the best. If anyone could navigate through a dimensional breach, it was her. My crew and I have been inside these things before, Jiwoo said. We know what to expect. Well, as much as anyone can. The entities do not attack randomly. They respond to intentions. If we go in focused on closing the breach, not fighting them, we might have a chance. The Vigilance approached the first breach with an escort of 50 coalition ships. Human advisors on every vessel guided their alien crews through the approach. Trust your instincts. Do not rely on sensors. Feel where the danger is. Daehyun watched from the command center connected to the consciousness network. He could feel what Jiwoo felt. The overwhelming presence of the entities, the wrongness of the dimensional breach, the courage it took to fly straight toward it. Jiwoo's voice came through the communication system. Entering the breach now. Reality here is very strange. Up and down do not make sense. Time is moving differently, but I can feel the path forward. Following my instincts, minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time was unstable near the breach. Then Jiwoo's voice returned, strained but triumphant. Device deployed. Breach is collapsing. We are getting out. The Vigilance emerged from the breach seconds before it sealed completely. The dimensional tear closed like a wound healing. The entities that had been pouring through were cut off, trapped back in their dying dimension. The coalition forces cheered. It worked. They could close the breaches. They could fight back, but there were hundreds of breaches across the galaxy. And not every mission would be as successful as the first. Over the following weeks, coalition forces began systematically closing breaches. Some missions succeeded, others failed catastrophically. Ships were lost. Brave crews died, but slowly, steadily, the number of breaches decreased. Commander Thix led many of the most dangerous missions personally. He had become a true believer in human instinct. His tactical decisions no longer relied on computers. He felt the flow of battle the way his ancient ancestors had. During one mission, his fleet was surrounded by entities. Sensors showed no enemies, but every human on his ships could feel them. Thix ordered his forces to fire in a specific pattern, guided purely by the collective instinct of his human advisors. It looked insane. His ships fired at empty space, following no logical targeting pattern, but every shot hit something. The entities, invisible to technology but clear to instinct, fell back. Thix's fleet completed their mission without losses. Meanwhile, Ambassador Quell made a breakthrough in communication with the entities. She established a link through the consciousness network, bridging the gap between dimensions. What she learned broke her heart. The entities were not monsters. They were ancient beings from the universe that existed before this one. When the previous universe collapsed, they were trapped in a pocket dimension. They had survived there for billions of years, but now that dimension was finally dying. The quantum gates had accidentally punched holes into their prison. The entities were not invading. They were escaping. They did not want to hurt anyone. They just wanted to survive. But every moment they spent in this dimension caused chaos. They were not made for this reality. Their very presence twisted physics and endangered everything around them. Quell brought this information to High Counselor Vrethis and Dae-Hyun. The three of them sat in a private chamber, grappling with an impossible moral question. "We cannot let them stay in our dimension," Vrethis said. "They are causing too much destruction, even unintentionally. But if we seal all the breaches, we doom them to die in their collapsing dimension," Quell added. "They are sentient beings. They feel fear and pain. They do not deserve extinction." Dae-Hyun thought about the millions who had already died. The colonies destroyed. The ships lost. Every military decision involved balancing lives. But this was different. This was choosing between saving his own people and condemning an entire species to death. "What if there is another option?" he said slowly. Both aliens looked at him. "What if we create a new dimension for them?" Dae-Hyun asked. "The quantum gates can manipulate dimensional barriers. If we could make a stable dimension, a place where they could survive without harming us, we could give them a new home instead of sealing them in to die." Vrethis turned deep blue, which meant contemplation. "The energy required would be immense. We would need to channel power from every star in Coalition space simultaneously. It might plunge entire sectors into darkness for years." "Better than committing genocide," Dae-Hyun replied. Quell reached out telepathically to the entity consciousness. "Can you wait?" she asked them. "If we promise to create a safe place for you, can you stop attacking us while we work?" The answer came back immediately. "Yes, we do not want to hurt you. We are just afraid. If you offer us hope, we will wait. But please hurry. Our dimension collapses more every day. We are running out of time." Dr. Hana assembled a team of the galaxy's best scientists, both human and alien. Bora led the calculations. They worked without sleep, racing against time to design a new dimension. It was the most ambitious project in galactic history. More complex than the quantum gates, more dangerous than any war. They would be creating an entire universe from scratch, and they had to get it right. One mistake could destroy everything. Dae-Hyun watched the scientist's work, and his instincts told him something important. This was the right choice. Difficult, maybe impossible, but right. Sometimes survival was not about defeating enemies. Sometimes it was about finding solutions where everyone could live. The galaxy was learning what humanity had known all along. When your instincts tell you something feels wrong, you listen. And when your heart tells you something is right, you listen to that too. The plan was impossible. Everyone knew it. But the Coalition Council voted unanimously to proceed. They would create a new dimension. A stable universe where the entities could live safely without destroying the reality that current civilizations called home. It required channeling the energy output of every star in Coalition space simultaneously. Billions of stars, all coordinated through the quantum gate network. The same network that had caused this disaster in the first place. Bora worked around the clock on the calculations. She had help from the best scientists in the galaxy, but ultimately the math came down to her. The youngest member of Earth's delegation, the one whose instincts had screamed warnings that nobody listened to, now held the fate of trillions in her equations. The pressure was crushing. Every number had to be perfect. One miscalculation and the entire galaxy could collapse into the new dimension they were creating. Or worse, both dimensions could collapse, destroying everything. "I am scared," Bora admitted to Dae-hyun late one night. She looked exhausted, her hands shaking as she stared at screens full of mathematics. "What if I make a mistake? What if my calculations are wrong? What does your gut tell you?" Dae-hyun asked. Bora closed her eyes. "That is the problem. The math says everything should work, but my instincts keep screaming that something is off. Just like with the quantum gates, there is something in the equations that does not feel right." "Then trust that feeling," Dae-hyun said. "Your instincts were right before. They tried to warn us about the gates. Do not ignore them now." Bora went back to her calculations. She reviewed everything again and again. The math was perfect. Every scientist who checked her work said so. According to logic and reason, the plan would succeed, but her instincts still screamed danger. Meanwhile, Captain Jiwoo prepared for the most dangerous mission yet. Someone had to fly into the heart of the dimensional breach at the galactic core, the largest breach, the one that threatened to tear all of reality apart. From there, they would deploy the device that would create the new dimension. The Vigilance would be the anchor point. Jiwoo and her crew would hold position inside the breach, while billions of stars poured their energy through the quantum network. If they lost position, if they moved even slightly, the entire process would fail. It was a suicide mission. Everyone knew it, but Jiwoo volunteered anyway. Her crew volunteered too. Every single person. They had faced the entities before. They had survived impossible situations by trusting their instincts. If anyone could hold position inside a dimensional breach, it was them. High Counselor Vrethus called an emergency session of the Coalition Council. Every representative from every world gathered to vote on the final authorization. They would commit every resource the Coalition had. They would plunge the galaxy into years of darkness as the stars were drained of energy. Entire civilizations would struggle without power. But the alternative was continuing to fight a war they could not win, against desperate beings who had nowhere else to. Dae-hyun spoke to the council one final time. "Months ago, humans tried to warn you that something felt wrong with the quantum gates. You dismissed us. You said we were too emotional, too primitive. You trusted your data over our instincts, and because of that, millions died." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Now we are asking you to trust us again. Not to trust data or calculations, but to trust something deeper. To trust that doing the right thing, even when it is hard, is worth the cost. The entities are not our enemies. They are victims of circumstance. We can save them and ourselves, but only if we are willing to take the risk." The council voted. It was unanimous. They would proceed. Preparations began immediately. Every world coordinated its quantum gates. Every star prepared to channel its energy. Every ship moved into position. It was the largest coordinated action in galactic history. Through the consciousness network, every human could feel the weight of what was about to happen. Millions of minds connected, sharing hope and fear in equal measure. Dr. Hannah monitored the network constantly. She watched as human instinct and alien logic merged into something new, a hybrid approach that took the best of both. Emotional intelligence guided by rational planning. Instinct verified by calculation. This is what the galaxy should have been all along, Hannah thought. Different species bringing their strengths together, learning from each other instead of dismissing what they do not understand. The countdown began. 10 hours until activation. Bora stared at her equations. Everything checked out. But that feeling of wrongness still nagged at her. She went through the calculations one more time, slower, trying to understand what her instincts were trying to tell her. And then, with 3 hours left, she saw it. A tiny error, so small that it had passed through every review. The kind of error that would not matter in normal circumstances. But this was not normal circumstances. This error would cause the new dimension to collapse within seconds of creation, taking both dimensions with it. They would not save the entities. They would destroy everything. Bora's hands shook as she realized what she had found. If she had ignored her instincts, if she had trusted the math alone, everyone would die. She contacted Dae-hyun immediately. "We have to stop the countdown. I found the error. I need time to fix it." "How much time?" Dae-hyun asked. "Hours, maybe a day. I have to recalculate everything." Through the consciousness network, Ambassador Quell felt the entity dimension collapsing faster. They had days left at most. Maybe less. Stopping the countdown might mean losing their only chance to save them. But proceeding with the flawed calculations would destroy everything. Dae-hyun made the hardest decision of his life. Stop the countdown. Bora needs more time. Across the galaxy, billions held their breath. The entities waited, trapped in their dying dimension. And a young human engineer worked frantically to fix the error that her instincts had warned her about all along. Bora did not sleep. She barely ate. Her fingers flew across keyboards as she recalculated, re-verified, adjusted. The error was subtle, but now that she understood it, she could fix it. It took 16 hours. When she finally finished, Bora sat back and checked the numbers one last time. The math was perfect now, and more importantly, her instincts were quiet. The feeling of wrongness was gone. It will work now, she told Dae-hyun. I'm certain. The countdown resumed. This time they would get it right. The Vigilance approached the massive dimensional breach at the galactic core. Captain Ji-woo gripped her command chair as reality twisted around her ship. Up became down. Left became right. Time moved forward and backward simultaneously. Her instruments were useless. Sensors showed readings that made no sense. Navigation computers crashed and restarted constantly. The only thing guiding them was pure instinct. Status report, Ji-woo called to her crew. Every member of her crew was connected to the consciousness network. They could feel the entities all around them. Ancient beings, desperate and afraid, waiting to see if humanity would save them or seal them into death. We are approaching the deployment point, her navigator said. But Captain, the space here does not make sense. I cannot calculate our exact position. Then do not calculate, Ji-woo replied. Feel it. Where does your gut say we need to be? The navigator closed his eyes, trusting instinct over instruments. There. He pointed to a region of space that looked no different from any other, but felt right. Across the galaxy, billions watched through view screens and consciousness network connections. Every star was ready to pour its energy through the quantum gate network. Every world held its breath. In the Coalition Capital Station Command Center, Dae-hyun stood beside High Counselor Vrethus, Commander Thix, Ambassador Quell, and Dr. Hana. Bora monitored her corrected calculations. Ready to initiate the sequence. Everything is ready, Bora said. The math is perfect. And more importantly, it feels right. My instincts are not screaming anymore. Dae-hyun nodded. He could feel it too, through the consciousness network. Millions of human minds all sensing that this was the moment. This was when everything would change. Vigilance, you are clear to deploy, he transmitted to Ji-woo. Captain Ji-woo activated the device. It was small, barely larger than a person, but it contained technology that would reshape reality itself. The device began to glow as it started connecting to the quantum gate network. Initiating energy transfer, Bora announced. All quantum gates are synchronizing. Across Coalition space, stars began to dim. Billions of them, all channeling their energy at once. The light from entire galaxies faded as unimaginable power flowed through the quantum network. Inside the dimensional breach, Ji-woo watched as space itself began to tear in a new way. Not a wound this time, but a doorway, a passage into a dimension that had not existed moments before. Reality screamed. Physics broke. The laws of nature twisted into new shapes. And through the consciousness network, every connected mind in the galaxy experienced something that had never happened before in the history of the universe. They felt creation itself. A new dimension formed, stable and safe. A universe designed specifically for the entities, where they could exist without harming others. Dr. Hana had programmed the basic laws of physics for this new reality, making it compatible with the beings who would live there. Ambassador Quell felt the entities respond. They sensed the new dimension. They understood what had been created for them. And through her telepathic link, Quell felt something she would never forget. Gratitude. Pure, overwhelming gratitude from beings who had lived in fear for billions of years. The entities began to migrate. They left the dying pocket dimension that had been their prison. They moved into the new universe that the Coalition had created. One by one, they passed through the gateway, heading toward safety. Ji-woo held the Vigilance steady as reality flowed around her ship. Time lost meaning. Seconds felt like hours. But she trusted her crew, and they trusted their instincts. They held position exactly where they needed to be. The last entity passed through the gateway. Ambassador Quell felt their final message. "Thank you. We will remember what you did for us. Someday we will repay this kindness." Then the dimensional breaches began to seal. The wounds in reality healed. The entities were gone, safe in their new home. The war was over. "Vigilance, get out of there," Daehyun ordered. Jiwoo pushed her engines to maximum power. The Vigilance shot out of the collapsing breach just seconds before it sealed completely. The ship was battered and scarred, but intact. The crew had survived. The coalition forces cheered. Across the galaxy, billions celebrated. They had done it. They had saved everyone, but the cost was real. As the stars slowly began to reignite, it became clear that the galaxy would be dark for years. Power would be limited. Resources would be scarce. Civilizations would have to adapt to survive without their usual energy sources. "It was worth it," High Counselor Vrethys said, addressing the Coalition Council. "We chose compassion over convenience. We chose to save lives instead of taking the easy path. This is what the Coalition should always be." The Council voted to make sweeping changes. Human instinct training became mandatory for all Coalition species. Dr. Hana was appointed director of the new Department of Instinctive Response. Commander Daehyun became Supreme Commander of Coalition Defense Forces, with authority to blend logical tactics with instinctive decision-making. Captain Jiwoo and the crew of the Vigilance received the highest honors the Coalition could offer. Their story would be taught for generations, as an example of courage and trust in the face of the impossible. Bora became the youngest scientist ever to receive the Galactic Achievement Award. Her willingness to trust her instincts over perfect looking. Mathematics had saved everything. The scientific community now taught a new principle named after her: the intuitive variable, accounting for factors that could not be measured but still mattered. Commander Thix established new military protocols that balanced technology with instinct. His forces became the most effective in Coalition history, proving that ancient warrior wisdom still had value in a modern galaxy. Ambassador Quell maintained diplomatic relations with the entities in their new dimension. The first interdimensional alliance in history, two universes working together, learning from each other. Humanity's place in the Coalition changed forever. They were no longer the primitive newcomers. They were the species who had saved the galaxy by trusting what others had evolved past, by listening when something felt wrong. Years later, as the last stars reignited and the galaxy returned to normal, a strange transmission arrived at the Coalition capital station. It came from deep space, from a direction that should not have anything there. Every human in Coalition space felt that familiar crawl of unease, that sense of wrongness, that instinctive alarm saying danger was approaching. But this time, when humanity said something feels wrong, the entire galaxy listened. High Counselor Vrethys contacted Daehyun immediately. "What do your instincts tell you, Commander?" Daehyun stood at the observation window, staring out at the stars. The consciousness network hummed with shared awareness. Millions of humans all sensing the same thing. Something was coming. Something big. But for the first time, they were not alone in feeling it. Alien species across the Coalition had learned to trust their own buried instincts. They felt it too. "We are ready," Daehyun said. "Whatever it is, we will face it together, with logic and instinct working side by side, just like we should have from the beginning." The galaxy had learned its lesson. Evolution's gifts were never obsolete. Ancient wisdom always had value, and sometimes the most advanced response was simply to trust your gut when it told you something felt wrong, because humanity had been right all along.